Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the very first episode of Haunted Locations. Today we're going to cover the Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond, Virginia. This is a large cemetery located right next to downtown Richmond. It's located next to the Oregon Hill neighborhood in Richmond. If you're familiar with the area, it is also overlooking the James River. It is the final resting place of two former U.S. presidents, James Monroe and John Tyler, as well as the president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis. And it has 28 Confederate generals buried there. As many of you know, Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy, so for that reason there are a lot of Confederates that were buried there. It is also a cemetery that houses a lot of the Confederate dead from the Battle of Gettysburg, because as many of you know also, the Confederates were not buried in Gettysburg. They were moved to other cemeteries, most of them in the South, and this was one of the more famous cemeteries that a lot of them were moved to. It was established in 1849. In 1869, a granite pyramid was built as a memorial for more than the 18,000 enlisted men of the Confederate Army buried. This is one of the famous spots in the cemetery to visit. It is also a spot where a lot of paranormal investigations are done, mostly with EVPs, but a lot of people claim they have captured a lot of voices at this memorial. It is weird because it is a pyramid built out of the ground. This cemetery is very big. It's very large. It's a cemetery where you can walk and you can be alone and not even see the front gate or the front area. It has a lot of windy hills and roads and mausoleums, and every road you go on in the cemetery is a totally different view from where you just were. Personally, I've been there once back in January. It was a very cool experience because you don't get a lot of cemeteries like this in the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States. It has a lot of mausoleums. It definitely at times does have that feel of a New Orleans style cemetery with the mausoleums everywhere, but it definitely has a gothic look to it also, which gives it a very creepy but cool experience to visit the cemetery. So the pyramid that was built as a memorial is one of the hot spots for paranormal activity here at Hollywood Cemetery. It is a major tourist attraction for anyone visiting the Richmond area, especially around Halloween time. They always like to have ghost hunts and adventures there for the city because it's one of the most haunted locations. But Richmond itself is a very haunted city. I feel like a lot of it isn't really shared, but Richmond has a deep history with the Civil War and even prior to the Civil War and everything that's happened there. So I think that Richmond deserves a lot more credit in its paranormal activity. It deserves a lot more credit on a list of most haunted places for sure. But I think in time, more people will start to discover Richmond for what it is paranormally. But Hollywood Cemetery has two big ghost stories, I guess. One has been debunked. That is the story of the Richmond vampire, which in the early 1900s, I believe someone saw a man running from the mausoleum, and he looked like his skin was burnt red, and he looked covered in dirt, and his teeth were all messed up and sharp looking, and they thought they saw a vampire. That's the legend. It would later be debunked as a man who was working on the nearby railroad, who was in an accident on the railroad, and his teeth were all messed up and he was burnt because of the accident, and he was running through the cemetery because his eyes were blind by the accident, so he was blinded, and he would later die, I think a few days later, but that was what became the legend of the Richmond vampire until it got debunked. So even though it's debunked, it's still a cool story to tell. It's still kind of unique, and a lot of people believed it for many years. Another legend is the legend of the grave of the little girl with the black iron statue of a dog. It's believed the ghost dog stands over to watch her grave, and many people have reported seeing it. It's one of the more famous graves to visit in the cemetery for this legendary story. But other than that, there's nothing specific about legends. You can talk to many people who've been there many times, and they'll tell you that they saw such and such, they saw this, they saw that. But there's nothing really unique other than those two stories that stand out as famous from the cemetery. But anyone who's watching this video who's been there, comment below if you had any experiences there, because I bet you have. And I bet that's why you're watching this video, right? You're looking up type in Hollywood Cemetery on YouTube, you find this video, and you're probably like, well, me and so-and-so were here back in whenever, and this happened to us. Share your story. I'd love to hear it. I'm sure everyone else would too. But I would definitely recommend visiting the cemetery if you're in the Mid-Atlantic region, or if you want a road trip to somewhere haunted. It's very cool, and it is a place where you can do your own investigations. It's so big and so vast that you can go here and you can be alone in an area of the cemetery. And you can do EVPs, or you can take pictures and see if something shows up, and you can do your own investigations. And it definitely has a lot of great, beautiful views in the cemetery, and also overlooking Richmond and the James River. I would recommend visiting it in the early spring or the fall, or even the winter if you're down for the colder weather, because this part of Richmond is kind of famous in the summer for tourism. There are a lot of people that go down there for the James River activities, the boating, the kayaking, whatever, the museums, with the Civil War and everything around this area. And parking can be hard to find in the summertime down here, especially on a weekend. But yeah, definitely check this place out. It's definitely a cool place to visit, especially if you're into the paranormal. You won't regret it. There's so many cool things to see, and you never know what you might capture on video. This place is definitely one of the most coolest cemeteries I've ever visited personally. So yeah, that's the legend of the Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond, Virginia. If you like this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. This is a new series. This is episode 1 of Haunted Locations. I'm going to try to do places I visited, but I'm going to also look at other places I haven't visited yet, and just talk about the legends, just talk about the sightings, just talk about the environment of the area, and just let you guys know what is going on with this place and how it is related to the paranormal. So that's what this series is going to be about. Again, this is called Haunted Locations. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, this is Fixed Image saying peace.
See your face, call it breaking me, alright. Pretty soon your heart will be gone. You can have the best of me, I'll just take the rest of me. Why are we growing apart? Ripping out the guts where there's something to save. Can you take